It's all woke. It's all woke culture. It's this culture of compliance. They want you to comply. That's what it's about more than anything. It's getting people to change. He said when a child has body dysphoria and they think they're fat, you don't tell them, oh yeah, you are fat. No, you help them. You say, no, you're not fat. This is just a mental disorder.
Joe Rogan just pulled off something so outrageous, it's got all the woke Hollywood crowd absolutely fuming. And this time, it's way bigger than one of his usual podcast rants. It's a full-on attack against the entire woke machine running the show. You know, the one controlling everything from the movies we watched, the conversations we're allowed to have. The wildest part, he might just be the one to bring the whole thing crashing down. So what did Joe Rogan actually do? Well, he's been tearing apart Hollywood's whole woke takeover. And it's insane when you stop and realize how far it's all gone. Remember when movies used to be genuinely funny? Yeah, those days feel like they're long gone. And Joe knows why. Exactly. He totally went off about how Hollywood's completely lost its sense of humor, reminiscing about the good old days when things were way more fun.
Yeah. That's what you get from a lot of people that work hard at sports. People that value hard work. And people that value hard work tend to be more conservative and less inclined to indulge people on their mental illness. You know, oh, you're a cat? No, you're not.
Is that a hair gel?
Yeah.
Great.
I can use No, you don't have to. You know.
Good luck finding a comedy these days that even tries to be different. Everything's been watered down, stripped of anything bold and edgy, and turned into some dumbed-down version that just fits to the woke agenda. Let's talk about where all this craziness really starts. The universities. Joe Rogan's been sounding the alarm for years, saying that extreme ideas brewing in these schools would eventually seep out into the real world. And guess what? He was totally right. Remember when Rogan had Brett Weinstein on his podcast?
Rogan makes a compelling case for why woke culture is detrimental to society as a whole. One of Rogan's boldest assertions is his stance on being uncancelable.
That guy was a professor at Evergreen State College, and his story was completely wild.
He refuses to bow to the pressures of cancel culture, standing firm in his convictions and continuing to speak his mind. This unwavering stance has earned him both admiration and disdain.
The college tried to pull that ridiculous move where they told all white people to stay off campus for a day, and when Weinstein didn't go along with it, the woke mob came for him hard, demanding he quit. We're talking about 50 students he'd never met, calling him a racist just because he didn't follow their rules. Rogan totally went off on this, and he's not wrong. That's how woke culture operates. It's all about following the rules without question. You're either with them or you're labeled the enemy. And that was only the beginning. Rogan's been keeping an eye on how these universities are churning out woke warriors who head straight into Hollywood, corporations, and the media, spreading the woke mindset everywhere they go. Take Bill Murray, for example. Rogan points out how in every movie, Murray starts off as this cool, sarcastic guy, but by the end, he's always apologizing for his attitude, transforming into this woke-approved, lovable version of himself.
It's a real struggle to think of a recent comedy gem. Rogan doesn't just leave it at that, though. He digs deeper, suggesting that woke culture might be to blame for the lackluster comedy scene by stifling creativity and enforcing politically correct boundaries.
That's the Hollywood formula now. Make sure every character is super likable and completely inoffensive, or the movie won't survive the Twitter mob. But Rogan likes to compare Bill Murray to Chevy Chase. Unlike Murray, Chase never softens. His character stays the same cocky, sarcastic from start to finish, and that's exactly why people love them. It's not just comedy that's getting messed up, though. Rogan's got some strong feelings about how Hollywood is ruining our favorite franchises. Case in point, Lord of the Rings. Have you seen what they're doing to Tolkien's masterpiece? Amazon's woke reimagining of the Lord of the Rings has been an absolute disaster. He's talking about how woke culture is forcing social commentary where it just doesn't belong. You want Lord of the Rings to be epic battles, friendship, and the classic good versus evil storyline, not whatever woke message Hollywood is trying to shove down your throat. And the fans? Oh, they're furious, and Rogan's totally on their side. Rogan's been calling out how the magic of these beloved stories is being ripped apart just to tick off woke checkboxes. But it's not just the Lord of the Rings. He's got a whole list. Look at Star Wars, another iconic franchise being dragged through the mud. Hollywood's gotten so caught up in woke pandering that they're sacrificing the very storytelling that made these films great in the first place. And if you think it's only Hollywood, wait until you hear what's happening in schools. Rogan's been shedding light on it, and it's even crazier than you'd imagine. He's been warning that schools have turned into woke battlegrounds instead of places for actual learning. For example, Rog shared this wild story about how some schools are letting kids identify as animals. Yeah, you heard that right. Animals. There are students running around dressed as cats, and instead of stopping it, teachers are actually encouraging it. One kid even hissed at another because they thought someone pulled their tail. And instead of shutting this ridiculousness down, schools are going along with it. Rogan's reaction? He's like, this is indulgent, it's absolutely crazy.
You know, oh, you're a cat? No, you're not. You have cat ears on. They don't even look like a cat. You don't even have a good costume on. Like, you're not tricking people in the dark.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And well, he's right. We've gone from teaching kids math and science to letting them pretend they're animals in school. But here's the real kicker. Schools are now keeping things from parents. Rogan and Bridget Fatasi discussed this in one episode, talking about how some schools won't even tell parents if their kids decide to change their gender identity.
Woke culture's impact isn't limited to Lord of the Rings, it's evident across various franchises and worlds. Rogan points out how woke influence has led to the distortion and uglification of beloved characters and settings.
You've got kids as young as 12 making huge, life-changing decisions, and the schools are keeping it all secret from their parents. How is this even happening? Rogan explains that these activist teachers are using their classrooms to push their ideologies, and it's all going under the radar. Rogan isn't just making stuff up either. He's got real stories to prove it. He shared how one of his friend's sons came home from school with the wildest story. This kid is in 7th grade, and his school is all in on the woke agenda. We're talking about kids walking around dressed as furries, students with multicolored hair everywhere, and no one can say a word about it. But here's the best part. Rogan's friend's kid is totally rejecting it. He's actually become one of the most conservative kids in his class because he's just so fed up with the craziness. Rogan pointed out that a lot of kids, especially the ones who are into sports and value hard work, are over the whole woke culture. They see it for what it really is, a distraction, an excuse, and in some cases just plain ridiculous. But what really sets Rogan apart from everyone else is his stance on cancel culture. The guy is literally uncancelable.
Always have people, you're going to have more people upset with you, and there's more righteous indignation, I think, than I've ever seen in comedy. I've had more people furious at me for what are clearly jokes.
He's made it clear he's not going to bend, apologize, or follow Hollywood's rules. And that's exactly why the woke mob can't stand him. Rogan has faced smear campaigns, online harassment, you name it, but he's still standing strong. And his audience, it's only growing. Millions of people tune in to hear him take on the woke establishment, and they see him as the voice of reason in a world that's getting more and more divided. His fearlessness has put him on a collision course with woke warriors like SJWs, who are trying to cancel him. But here's the thing, Rogan's built something much bigger than Hollywood on the mainstream media. He's created a platform that's too big to bring down. But let's circle back to Hollywood because Rogan is shaking the entire industry. He not only is calling out the wokeness, he's tearing it apart piece by piece. Whether it's the destruction of comedy, the ruining of iconic franchises, or the spread of woke ideology into schools, Rogan is relentless in his mission to expose the truth. And Hollywood, they're panicking. They don't know how to deal with him because Rogan is untouchable. He's not one of them. He doesn't need their approval, their awards, or their validation. In fact, it's the opposite. He's thriving outside their system, and that's exactly what makes him so dangerous to the woke agenda.
You know, there's a lot of need to label someone into an easily dismissible category, and that category is conservative, like ruthless, nasty, mean.
And you can't talk about Joe Rogan without mentioning his views on gender politics. He's been one of the few public figures brave enough to take on the craziness surrounding gender identity and the woke ideologies that come with it. Rogan talked about how schools are pushing kids towards gender transitions without proper guidance, and he's been critical of laws that force people to use specific pronouns. During a discussion with Jordan Peterson, Rogan didn't hold back, calling out how this kind of forced speech is dangerous of a form of censorship.
How much something is social and how much it is biological actually depends on the social circumstances. So, well, here's an example. If you have a society where no one has enough to eat.
Yeah, it's not exactly just about being polite anymore. It's about forcing people to conform to a certain worldview, whether they agree on it or not. Rogan's also made it clear how the issue is especially dangerous when it comes to kids.
Having two different types of gametes, two different sizes, and the organisms that produce sperm, the smaller gamete, they're considered males. Organisms that produce the larger gametes, the ova, they're considered females.
We're not just talking about adults making choices about their identity. Schools are actually encouraging children to transition without them fully grasping the long-term consequences. It's absolutely insane. Rogan says these are just kids. So where does Rogan go from there? Well, judging by how things are going, it doesn't look like Rogan is slowing down anytime soon. He's got Hollywood on the ropes, and he's exposing the craziness happening in schools, and he's pulling back the curtain on how woke culture is choking free speech. Rogan is on a mission, and the wildest part is he's doing it all on his own terms. No sponsors, no network execs, and definitely no Hollywood gatekeepers telling him what he can or can't say. Joe Rogan is in control, and that's exactly what makes him so dangerous to woke culture. So, what do you think? Is Joe Rogan the one to take down woke Hollywood, or is this just the start of the battle? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content.